Welcome, my friends, to another YouTube version of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you do, please subscribe to the channel. So here we go.
Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to episode 163 of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I'm Gary, and I got Byron here, and I tell you, we got an awesome show today. Today, our special guest is, you're listening to him, myself and Byron. We're going to talk about two moves from each position. Basically, when you're new, a lot of times you'll get into a position and you may not really know where to go. You may have a brick from that position, which is a really good move that, you felt like you hit somebody with a brick with. But it's always good to have another option. So what we're going to do is just talk about when you get into a specific position, where's two different ways you can go, two different paths to look for a submission.
Yep, I'm excited about this. This is an idea that we've had going for a while. And I think it's good when you're new, and it's good when you're experienced. You have to have stuff you're working on, and the idea that you have two or more. I think as you get more experience, you kind of just have more positions to work from. It's not just guard. It can be a particular guard or a subset of a particular guard, and you have to have options. And it's just a good way to train. It helps you train smarter, and it'll help you develop your game at an accelerated rate.
Yeah, like you said, a big thing I noticed, like when I first started, I could just work one move. If I was going against another person who hadn't been training very long, and let's say I got side mount and I was working for, let's say an Americana, I'd be working the Americana and the Americana only. And, today with higher level training partners and the longer you've been training, you go into that Americana expecting to straighten the arm out, and then you're going to go for move number two. Like you're always a move or two ahead, where when I first started and hadn't been training long, I was, just so focused on one particular move.
Absolutely. This kind of is a similar topic in the audiobook that we have. We have an audiobook called Your First Year of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's by me, written and recorded by Byron. It's 2.5 hours long, and I break down everything from finding the right gym, your first month of training, benefits of BJJ, and then chapter 4, it talks about techniques and positions to focus on. And this is really aimed at the newer person, and just kind of keep your head in the game as far as with a lot of good techniques out there, but maybe some of them aren't really right for you in your first year of training, and to focus on things that are really going to have a longer lasting impact in your game. So I think that chapter 4, techniques and positions to focus on, is that chapter alone is about an hour long. It's a little bit longer, I think, and it's just really got a lot of stuff for you to help you figure out what you should be working on. Because to face it, Gary, when you show up to your first day of class, generally speaking, unless it's a beginner's class, they're not teaching you beginner stuff. They're teaching the class things, and you're just going to kind of try to learn it as you go. And, you come in day one, and they're teaching you some advanced guard.
You're learning Barambolas.
Yeah. As a tough start. So I'll try to highlight some stuff that I think that you should be trying to kind of aim at during your first year. So the audiobook is $11.99. It's available on our website, and you could go to the show notes and click the link there, and the money goes to help the show stay on the air.
Yep, and also, hey, make sure you subscribe to our email list. We have a link to it on the show notes, and basically all it's going to do is it's going to get you the show each and every week, so you never miss a show. We'll email you a link to the show, so that way you'll never miss an episode. So definitely get your email on the list.
Absolutely. Gary, we've got another thing going on here. This is the last episode of the month, and that's why we're kind of doing our topic episodes where we just kind of chat about something. Coming up on the end of the month, which is coming up on the end of the year, we have a Coach of the Year contest. I think we're going to wrap this contest up maybe the first or second week in December. We'll stop taking submissions for this. So if you have an outstanding coach, somebody that you would like us to consider for BJJ Brick Podcast Coach of the Year, write up a little essay about what makes them outstanding, what makes them, in your eyes, possibly the Coach of the Year. And don't just say that. You could say whatever you want, but if you just say, he's a great coach, he taught me how to do arm bars really well. I'm now a blue belt and I won a tournament. That's fantastic. But we're really looking for maybe a story about the character of your coach and what they're doing for the community, what they've done for you, maybe what they've done for another student. So really kind of tell us a story, and that will help you do better in this contest, because we've got a lot of submissions coming in here, and a lot of them are very good. We've got a lot of good coaches submitted to us. And if anything, Gary, we'll have a coach of the year no matter what, but we'll probably pick up a few people to interview in the coming year. So people who don't even necessarily win it still might get to make an appearance on the show, and we'll get to learn from them still. So we got a lot going on with Coach of the Year. If you want to send a submission in, bjjbrick@gmail.com. It's the easiest way to do that, and I'll put that in the folder. And we're going to be assembling a little team of people to read them and to pick their favorites, and we'll make a selection from there. So that's what we got going on for Coach of the Year. Do it quick because we're running out of time.
Yeah, definitely. A couple more weeks. Keep sending in your submissions for Coach of the Year, and hopefully your coach will win.
Well, great coach we had on last week, Rodrigo Pinheiro. Was actually gracious enough to leave us with a quote, and we'll go ahead and play it this week. So here we go. Here's Rodrigo Pinheiro with his quote.
Yes, I like to say a lot, like no pain, no gain. It's something that I carry with me forever. I think it doesn't exist miracle without sacrifice. That's pretty much what it is. Anything in life, they have the pros and cons, and that you have to balance yourself and see, what you want, and you have to be willing to pay the price. That's pretty much what it is. In this world, I believe anything is possible as long as you have a good attitude, as you have God as your your Savior, Jesus Christ, and and you're willing to work hard. As long as you have faith and want to work hard, you can touch the sky.
That's a good quote. No pain, no gain. And I think that in today's day and age, we're looking for things that a lot of people are looking for things that don't cause any pain, and we just try to make a very comfortable lifestyle, and we're missing out on some of the struggles that make us who we are.
Yeah, that's struggle is part of the improvement and the evolution of the humans. I think anybody they have to pass from this phase. You have to be struggle. You have to learn. With your own mistakes, and you have to pass through this phase and become a better person. I believe the evolution it's happening daily. Your goal it's only be better than you was yesterday. That's it. Every day you gotta wake up with this mindset. You have to be better than what you was yesterday, and the next day the same thing, and the next day the same thing. And keep living life like that.
All right. Well, thank Rodrigo Pinheiro for that. If you missed his interview, go back and listen to last week's episode where he does the entire interview. But there's no pain, no gain. It's simple. It makes sense a lot in jiu-jitsu. Things don't just come easy for everybody all the time. And really, when things do come easy to you, often the gain is a little less. You don't appreciate it as much. I think back in school when I had to study really hard for something and I got a B or I barely got an A or whatever, I felt more from that gain than if I did pretty good in science. So I didn't have to study so much for science, and I wasn't as proud of that as some of my other school accomplishments that I had to actually suffer for and work hard to. And I think that's the same at work, life, family. You have to make some sacrifices sometimes, and it makes the reward a little bit sweeter.
Well, I know we've been talking about pain and gain. It's always a pain when you have to work or you have stuff in your life happening where you can't get on the mat and train so you can make gains. I should be a rapper after all that. But, hey, this week we have a great article from Stephen Kesting, who's been on the show before, grapplearts.com. And his article is it's from November 5th, and it's called How to Train When You Have No Time. And, there's a ton of people who do not have a lot of time. I hear that all the time. The two biggest things I think I hear when people are talking about hey, do you want to come train with us? You want to try out jiu-jitsu? Is I always hear I need to get in shape first, and then the second one I do here is I don't have a lot of time. And a lot of the people I know that I train with do have jobs, do have families, maybe have second jobs. Volunteer their time, coaching wrestling or coaching basketball or t-ball. I see that happening a lot. Have kids going back and forth, and and sometimes it does get hard to train, and I always say just keep plugging along. Even if you can only show up once a week or twice a month, you're still going to make gains. And I know we had an article with Joe Thomas, one of our listeners who gave us a couple articles, and he was talking about due to his work schedule where he's on an oil rig, for so many days at a time, and how he gets around training. But this article is good practical advice for people on a tough schedule, how to keep training and how to get better.
Yep, and he starts off. This is a pretty detailed article, and we're not going to cover it all. But he experimented with cutting some sleep out. Getting up real early and training. Which getting up early and training is great if you're able to go to bed a little earlier. But getting 5 hours of sleep at night and going to train worked for a little while. Ultimately, he got injured, and he looks at that and is reflecting and thinking probably less likely to get injured if he was getting a good night's rest. Get that 8 hours of sleep or whatever your body and mind needs to be rested. Everybody's a little different, and you might go through different phases during your life as well, what you need for sleep. But definitely 5 for most people is not cutting it. And you'll probably be more likely to get injury prone. You're less likely to heal. You do a lot of healing when you're asleep, and your body uses that time to recover. So cutting sleep may not be the best thing for you if you're short on time. I guess it's an option a couple times a week. If you get to get up, you're going to go train twice a week, and it's early in the morning. Well, generally speaking, you're still getting quite a bit of sleep the other nights. That would be an option, but he doesn't recommend it as the first. His
first option, he basically says waste less time, make more time. And a big part of that is if you really want to train, if that's really what you want to do, and you're saying you don't have time to train. A lot of times you're watching TV, you're watching your Netflix subscription, you're doing stuff like that. He's like, throw that out, toss out your television, cancel your Netflix subscription, and that'll free up time. And I'm not saying throw your TV out, because you're probably going to want to watch TV sometimes, and or watch Netflix. But if you're watching a movie a day, you can definitely find some time. And he also talks about train outside of regular class times. And depending on your job or your schools, some schools may not be very big and may only have a class at a certain time, and it may be the only school around you. Maybe the school where you go to, and that's your only option. And sometimes they will have open mat, or they'll open the gym a little bit earlier. If class starts at, let's say, 7, but you've got to be at work at 7 o'clock, see if you can get one of the regular training partners there to show up an hour early and drill or roll with them for 30 minutes before you got to take off. And so that's a good way to get some training outside of regular class times.
Another thing he says that he does not recommend is a grappling dummy, which I've never even considered getting a grappling dummy.
I've really thought about it.
Have you really?
No,
is it Byron? Did you name it?
I really have thought about getting one. I never have. I just didn't want to fork over the expense, but I thought it'd be great, maybe for drilling. But according to Stephen Kesting, not a great idea.
Yeah. Just nobody uses them. He says about 1% of grapplers who buy one use it, and I think it's boring. Of course, I don't know this, but it doesn't provide any of the resistance that you would need, and you're just going to kind of just go through the motions that you can. I guess if you lived on Mars and there was nobody around, grappling dummy's better than nothing, but you're hoping for that chance to get somebody else to train with.
What else you could use that grappling dummy for? You could put it in your car, and you could use the carpool lane. So, there are some options to having a grappling dummy.
There you go. I thought you were going somewhere else with that, but that's good, Gary.
No, I try to keep this PG.
Try.
I have 4 grappling dummies tied up in my basement as we speak.
Oh, goodness. Well, just put them in your car, Gary. You're good to go.
Okay, there you go. But Another thing he says too, if you can pick up some cheap puzzle mats, train at home, and and I've had some people run into this, and I have puzzle mats myself at home. But one thing about puzzle mats, before you go out and buy them, make sure you're actually going to have somebody to train with you. Puzzle mats don't necessarily solve your problem unless you can find somebody to train. And I've actually heard a lot of people said they bought mats for home, but can't get anybody to train. So make sure you have a good, steady training partner or somebody who'll work with you every now and then.
Yeah, it feels good to say, I got some mats, but you only have part of the problem solved. You need some people, or at least another person. And if you don't have that person, or you have to train that person from the very beginning, you got some hurdles to get over before you can actually train at home. So that's just something to consider. The mats aren't necessarily the best solution to everyone's problem. You need the place to go to train, or if that's not at your house. If it's at your house, you're fortunate that you have people coming over to train.
Yeah. And I remember when I first got my mats, I bought, a little 10 by 10 section of mats, and I figured I could get some drilling outside of regular class times. And, I had them for like 3 months before anybody ever came over to train. And that was you and your brother came over one day to train. I was like, yes, somebody finally has trained with me. It only took 3 months.
Yeah, you kept posting pictures of you in a little Speedo, inviting people to come train, and we're the only ones foolish enough to come try it.
Yeah, but we had a good time. Well, at least I did.
So I think that's another word of caution. Before investing in a bunch of mats, kind of consider who would actually show up and train with you. And if you don't have anybody, you have to build those teammates. And it's so much easier to just go to a place that's already established and has the people. I'm fortunate. The Fox Fitness where I train, they have 6 a.m. class, 11:30, and 6:30 in the evening. So if I have a day off, I'll try to get to one of those classes. And I'm just lucky that they have such a busy all afternoon, busy all evening. Maybe I'll try the early morning class, which I haven't even gone to yet. But a lot of times my evening will get busy, and I'll just go the afternoon, and that's been great lately. And that's something that you might consider if your school offers it multiple times. That could be a huge training advantage to you. Can you sneak over there during your lunch break and train and shower and get back, in a good amount of time? That would be awesome. You could sneak in work and not take away any family, or sneak in train and not take away any family time, and really just eat lunch, as you're driving to and from the gym.
Yep. Another thing he talks about is using your training time more efficiently and effectively. And I can tell you, I did this a lot myself, and it's kind of changed the way I train now. For about a year, I was training 1 day a week, and just Saturday mornings. And I used to make sure I got there nice and early, and the very first person who walked in the gym, I'd start training with. I would be on the mat training before anybody got there, and I would be the last person left on the mat. I would try to grab, every little amount of time. Really, I didn't engage in any small talk. I never took a round off. I wouldn't even get a drink unless I started cramping. I wanted to spend my whole time on the mat because I didn't have a lot of time. So, that really helped me, and it really changed my focus now. I still don't. I'm not a guy who trains 6 days a week. I train maybe 3 days a week, and I always try to be the first one on the mat and the last one off, trying to grab every little amount of time I can get for learning, for working on my conditioning, for working on my technique, and trying, and I do goof around, but I'm normally telling jokes while I'm rolling. I can roll and joke at the same time, but when I'm on the mat, I try to just keep going and going and going.
I like how, Gary, you keep commenting about the article, and I just bring up different stuff, not in the article. So, Gary, you're doing great today. You're really keeping us on track. But I would agree, Gary, you are so efficient. You want to tell your jokes, you want to have a good time and laugh, but you have moved that into the time when you're just rolling. So it's really amazing to see Gary. He'll look up, he'll tell a joke about or to somebody, and just keep on rolling. And the time he used to have where he'd have to stand around and tell jokes has been transitioned into the mat time. So
well, the good thing is it's helped my offense. Like sometimes somebody will, I'll tell a joke and they'll start laughing. When they're laughing, normally they're not tense, so it's a lot easier to pull a limb away from the body and submit it. So it works great for my offense.
There you go. You found a good system there.
Yes, I have.
There's a lot more in this article. It's at grapplearts.com by our friend Stephen Kesting. He's been on the show a while back. Check out his interview as well. This article is called "How to Train When You Have No Time," and we've all been there, Gary. People are busy. Everyone's busy.
Yeah, we want to find times to train, and any little hints or tips we can get is going to keep us on the mat longer, and make our journey so much more fun and successful.
There we go. Well, with that,
yeah. Speaking of fun and successful, we all like to train. We all like to roll, and when we roll, it's always nice to know what to do from each position.
There we go. So this is an idea that I don't know where. It's hard because we do a podcast all the time and we're talking to people, but I don't really know where this idea came about. But it's been kind of a steady training idea of mine that I've been using. Not that I invented it. I don't know. But having a couple of techniques from each position has a good advantage for multiple reasons. One, because let's just take the position of, say, guard. If all I'm going to do in my guard is triangle Gary, he's probably going to be able to avoid that triangle because he knows it's coming. He knows that's all I want. Triangle, triangle, triangle. Hey, Gary, here's a triangle for you. You see this? It's got 3 sides. It's a triangle. But if I'm able to do a triangle sweep attempt
with 4 sides
or a double triangle, or able to kind of just mix it up just a little bit, even if one of them is still a lot stronger than the other one, if I'm able to try 2 things instead of just one thing, I'll find combinations to that. If I maybe my sweep attempt ends up getting Gary to put his hand on the ground, and suddenly that hand that's now a post is now going to be the hand that's outside of my triangle to set it up. That's a good option. Or it might set up my triangle might set up a sweep. I don't know, but just having 2 things that you're working on, 2 things that you're looking for, not 50 and not just one. I like 2 really. Lets you have focus while you train. You won't talk about getting efficient when you're training. You're not training everything every day. Today, if I'm in my guard, I'm going to work on these 2 things. From right now, myself, I'm going to work arm in guillotine, and I'm working on deep half sweeps. That's what I'm doing right now. That's my 2 things from my guard that I'm working on. I might get something else, but that's not what I was trying to set up initially. So I have this going on right now. And I recommend it if you're brand new at jiu-jitsu. I recommend it for you right now. You need a couple of techniques to work on from each position. And it also helps a lot with frustration. Gary, nothing like a guy, spending 80 to 90% of his time developing his guard. I'm getting a good guard, I'm getting comfortable. And then you end up getting mounted and you're frustrated because you want to work on your guard. Hey, guess what? You could have 2 things to work on escape-wise from the mount. And just think of it, I'm going to work on those 2. And if they're not very good, you're probably going to get caught. But if you have something at least to work on, you're not clueless, and you have that idea. Well, I'm going to try my bridge escape, and I'm going to try to shrimp. Boom, 2 things. If they work, that's great. If not, you're going to keep working on them and figure it out from there.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. It's like, always think of it as a learning process. I know sometimes people get upset. Oh, crap, I got put in this crappy position, and I just got submitted. I couldn't get out. Yeah, you couldn't get out today. But hey, who knows what's going to happen a month from today? And I like to, put myself in bad positions and work escapes, from bad positions and try out these new things. And pretty soon they become a very good move. Kind of a brick type move, something that works really well for me. So, don't just get discouraged. Like Byron says, if you're trying your bridge escape and it's not working, keep trying it. Sooner or later, it's going to start working. And then once it starts working, you're going to see it hit more and more often. And then pretty soon you're going to get really good at that move.
Yeah, I just think this is a great way to deal with some of the initial frustrations when things aren't going your way, because you're going to be put in bad spots in jiu-jitsu. Like Gary said, he likes to be there. Not everybody likes that, but at least you'll have something to do when you're there. You won't just be like, well, this sucks. I'm probably going to get tapped. You'll have an idea.
Yeah, I'm going to extend my arm out straight. Hopefully it goes for an arm bar and maybe I can escape. That's not the high percentage way to escape.
Those won't be the moves we're recommending. Although it might happen. You might escape an arm bar and get on top, but that's not probably the best initial game plan that you should have going in. But it's just, I think it just gives you something to do. To me, it's most frustrating, and it still happens occasionally. Gary did a kind of a funky Kimura fancy roll from my turtle position, and I was like, I don't know where I am right now. I don't understand what's going on. I kind of sat there and kind of thought about it and twisted and did some stuff, and he was nice enough. Hey, let me show you what just happened. but being confused or being kind of lost can be a frustrating place to be. And if we kind of break down the basic positions, or maybe the stuff we don't cover today, if you're still getting in spots that we're not covering, figure out 2 things you can do from there, and that'll help you a lot further down the road. Because every gym is different, and we might cover what to do from closed guard, but nobody at your gym plays closed guard. It's okay. If they're all playing butterfly, you need two different passes really for butterfly guard. It doesn't really matter that we talked about closed guard today. You still have to figure out a couple things that will work on your teammates and work on your training partners. So, Gary, how do we want to tackle this? I don't think we'll cover all the positions in all of jiu-jitsu. That sounds a bit daunting.
Yeah.
But we'll cover a few for sure.
Yeah, definitely. How about we start from side mount, Byron?
Side mount, okay. Do you want to start from the top or from the bottom?
Well, I was going to say, let's start from the top.
Okay.
Let's go good offense. I tell you myself, side mount, first of all, I'm looking to establish position, but I'm always looking for that far side arm. I'm always looking for an underhook where maybe I can, pull him up to his side, keep his body close to me, work a Kimura. So I'm always really, really, really trying to get that underhook where, to me, that's where my offense starts.
Okay, Gary, if we'll play this kind of just live here and see how we go. If I'm hiding that far side arm and it's that option, which is a very strong option for you, it leads to a ton of stuff. If you're unable to get that far side arm dug out of there, which option 2?
I'm probably going to start digging. I'm going to try to dig for that arm. You're not giving it to me. Normally what I'm going to do is I'm going to move north-south or knee across belly to the other side and try to dig that other arm. I will go back and forth, digging arm to arm, even if you keep it hidden. And normally, sooner or later, I'm going to catch an arm in transition. And that's what I look for a lot.
Yep. But Gary's not going to spend the entire 5 or 10 minutes trying to dig an arm. He's going to make a kind of a move north-south or knee and belly and try to draw that arm out to go back to work.
Draw that. Yep. Yeah, I'm not going to waste all my energy trying to dig that underhook. I'm going to search for the underhook. I'm hoping when I pass, I try to grab the underhook off the pass. But, a lot of people will keep their arm to their side. So then I'll flatten the person out. I'll try to dig the underhook from there. If I don't have it, I'm not going to spend all my time digging it. I might, like Byron said, go north-south or knee on belly and switch the other side. And hopefully, an arm comes away from the body. Another thing I like to do is, if I'm passing with a knee slide pass, I won't totally pass. I'll keep my, inside leg trapped as I knee slide. I don't come all the way through. I keep the bottom leg of my opponent trapped. And I'll kind of come around the head with kind of like I'm threatening a guillotine, kind of crunch him up a little bit. And, I'll grab the chin. I'll do a chin strap. And as soon as the opponent grabs my hand he grabs my hand to just take a little pressure off that chin strap, I like to take my other hand and pull that arm straight back down his body, kind of towards his leg. And then that just opens up the elbow again, and I'll try to grab a Kimura from there. So, a couple different options there.
Yeah, and it doesn't these might be not something that you're good at, but that doesn't matter. If you have a couple, it really opens up the options. You're not stuck there just trying to do one thing to your opponent that is just like, okay, I'll block that. Now what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to try to do that again, but you're already blocking it. Like run into the wall again. Go around the wall and find another option. Myself, I think a great technique, especially for, I guess, beginner, but really for anybody, is the Darce. If you can get them to turn a little bit towards you, it's relatively risk-free. If they escape the Darce, they're generally still in side control, which is very nice if you're wanting to establish a strong top game. The Darce choke is very nice. I'm also looking, for my own personal game, I like the head and arm choke. That's a little bit more tricky to get started sometimes, but working those different things based on which way they're facing. So side control, like we're going to see over and over again, is dependent upon what your opponent's doing. So
Yeah.
there's multiple side controls, different arm positions, stuff like that. But really, if your opponent is just facing towards you, Darce is a good option. If they're kind of running away from you, Darce isn't going to happen so easily. I mean,
Yeah.
you could go to the far side, Darce, but so all this is dependent upon what's being presented to you. And you may be able to make your opponent turn one way or the other or put their arm somewhere, or you may not. So you need to kind of analyze your game and your side control or any position and figure out which type am I playing and then what would work well from there. So when you get there, you could go to work. You don't have to try to, oh man, he's turned totally the wrong way. I have to try to set this Darce up and it's okay. What's my option number 2? Well, your option number 1 was pretty crappy to begin with. Why not have good options? And this is, I mean, it's going to come from your training partners. What's going to be good options for you? And that really, hopefully they're good partners and good opponents for you to get you to develop a strong game. But that's side control from the top. Let's kind of side control from the bottom. To me, you're basically just escaping. And
Definitely escape.
I don't play around in the bottom side control trying to do anything fancy. I know Gary has swept me multiple times with like a Kimura thing from side, but I don't do any of that. I keep my hands in pretty tight. I like to kind of shell up a little bit, I guess, keep my hands between you guys, shrimp, and get my knees back in, or come up to my knees. So, and that might involve an underhook as well. So those are my 2 basic escapes. I'm going to do those 2 escapes probably 95% of the time. And if one of them doesn't work, usually the reason why they're blocking that will set up the other one, and I'll find a way out one way or the other. Either I'm going to shrimp and get my guard back, or create some space and get up to my knees and work from there, like kind of like a takedown attempt.
Yeah. When I first started and been training, probably my first 5-6 years, boy, I got really good at my hip escape and getting back into guard. I got really, really good at that. And then I found people, I've always had a kind of an aggressive guard, but I found my teammates and training partners knew me so well that I would escape and get into guard, and then nothing would happen. And, once everybody started getting a little bit better, and I was like, boy, Gary, I need to now start getting out of that position, but stop going for guard and try to end up, side mount or somewhere. And that's when I really started working with my underhook. I really started, really relying on that underhook, getting up to my side. And once I get an underhook, I kind of, open my elbow up to open his arm even wider and kind of slide him by and, tap that outside knee and kind of turn it into almost a takedown or reverse. And, I'll end up in side control. So I've been having good luck with that. If that doesn't work, I'll create space with that underhook, pop up to my knees with a head on the inside single, knee tap that far side, and same boat, just a couple extra steps. But I've been really working lately on trying not to just go back into guard, which I know is there. It's just I just been trying to work on, coming up into a more dominant position.
And that's great. It just goes to show that you have options, and this will become eventually in a little while of depending on where you are at jiu-jitsu, it becomes something that you're learning into more of an art form. Like you get to choose which ones you're working on, and if you work on these, you'll be good at those eventually. And you have to make those decisions for yourself, really. And if you would rather not play guard and you want to get to the top, find ways to do that. And this is a great example of how Gary is doing that. I think you're just doing it because you're enjoying the different parts of your game and you don't want to keep going back to guard.
Yeah. But, to be honest, you were the one who kind of inspired me for this. And, Byron's kind of one guy who's been kind of a mentor to me and helped me out a lot. And just kind of helped me think through stuff. And one thing he always said, even earlier in the game, like we'd been training a year and Byron a lot smarter than I am. And, he would think of stuff. I would just show up and train, and Byron would analyze stuff. And, Byron was always saying, we need to work on a move, kind of like your brick. You need to get good with a move. You need to, and work on it for, a couple weeks. And me, I took, I'm going to take anything Byron says and, ratchet it up 10,000 times. So Byron tells me you need to work on something for a couple weeks. I spent literally, and I'm not kidding, probably a whole year minimum of starting every round bottom side control, letting the guys get control on me, side control. I would almost like pull bottom side control and just work my way out of there and do another position. And, I got very comfortable with it. And bad thing is now everybody shuts it down. They know what I'm doing. But it's what I did. It's, thanks to advice like that, I just look at it that I'm trying to improve my game. And, even though right off the bat I was getting smashed all the time and spending a lot of time on the bottom, I knew sooner or later, all this hard work, it was going to come to fruition, and I was going to start working that game. And so I really, really like to put myself in the positions that I'm working. It may not always be a bad position. I maybe want to work mount, and I'm going to, try to get mount every single time and work from there, a particular move or a particular combination or sequence. But if you just keep working it and working and working, and pretty soon it's going to feel normal to you, and you're going to get much better at it.
Yeah. If your goal is to, work on the mount position and you have no really ability to pass the guard or to do a sweep, it's going to be a frustrating experience. So this is a good idea about working, kind of having a game plan for all the positions. So you're not constantly, I didn't get any of my mount attacks today because I couldn't even get there. That's one of the beauties about working on your defenses. People will gladly put you in side control and let you work on your escapes. I mean, Gary, I remember that. Gary did this literally for a year. He would start with side control, and he says it's been shut down. Gary is very hard to hold in the side control for any amount of time. He's very hard to attack from side control. And it just echoes of what he had put the time in and done in the past, and it's still seen in his game today. So side, top, and bottom, really the choices are yours. If you had luck with anything in the past, I would keep it. And if you only have one thing, look for a second. But if you're trying like 90 different things at a time, maybe focus on just one or two instead of the 90, and you'll have more luck. If you don't really have, let's say you only have one escape, talk to your teammates, talk to some of the upper ranked people there and say, what would we get another escape? Because even by threatening a second escape, your initial escape will be opened up a little bit. It's hard to defend two different escapes coming at you back to back, or
That's true.
one after the other, a couple times. It happens. And a little tip here on side control: most people, a lot of people go to do the shrimp, and they kind of turn on their side and they try to bring their knees in. Shrimp, move your hips away from the person in side control. Honestly,
create that space.
Yeah, if looking at the position of side control, my elbow is probably on your far hip. That's my arm. My arm can't stop your hips from shrimping. My arm can't hold your hips from moving to the side away from me. Blow through that arm with your hips. And then you'll have plenty of space to bring your knees in or get up to your knees. But you the little shrimp of just kind of lazy turning your side and trying to bring your knees in, that's not going to cut it, generally speaking. Move your hips when you shrimp. People just, it's something I kind of get on some of the students sometime. You got to move. More hip movement is generally a better thing. More space you're creating is good. So that's a little tip for your side control escapes. Move your hips.
Yeah. My early instructor, John Castillo, he used to always tell me, and I was the guy, I probably didn't move a lot. When I first started, I tried to use muscle and everything. And, he told me one time, if what you're trying to do, escape-wise doesn't work, move your hips some more. Like, he said, if anything doesn't work, move your hips a little bit. And, I started thinking about that and started, while I was rolling, something's not working right away, I'd move my hips a little bit more. Oh, okay, it's working. And, it's just because a lot of times I wasn't finishing something just because I didn't move enough. I needed a little bit more space or, had to get a different angle. So, that's one thing that's always stuck with me. And it seemed like it really helped me out of some crappy positions.
Absolutely. Gary, let's move on from side to mount. Do you want to tackle the top or bottom first?
Well, I say we go top. I'm a top guy.
Yes, you are. Okay, Gary. What? Maybe not necessarily what do you do from mount, but what would you recommend somebody looking at as two good options, or what combinations well together?
I think you've got the Americana. The paintbrush. From there, and I think it also goes really well. A nice little combination. You have our paintbrush, and then you also have an arm bar. I can say my mount armbar is not that great, but I think doing a armbar from the mount and paintbrush Americana is a good combination. Couple basic moves, submissions from the top that can work really well.
Gary, spoken like a no-gi guy, those are two great options. When they put the gi on, your chokes really open up. And
there's a gi?
There could be a gi involved. So, this is one of the rare times that I will actually... I try not to play really a gi game even when I have the gi on, because we're kind of emphasizing here, I'm working on two things at a time from each position, generally speaking. And if I'm only able to train no-gi, this week, two or three times I go are all no-gi, well, I didn't work on any of my cross chokes at all this week. So generally speaking, my cross choke is not involved in my training. So they're not as strong as it could be. But if they have a gi on and you're training a lot of gi, I think that, getting in hold of the collar and putting the pressure on the neck is a great choke. And it also opens him up for maybe a subsequent armbar as well. And like Gary said, start with your paintbrush, your Americana shoulder lock, and you get it or you don't get it, but it's going to open up that armbar. And sometimes starting with an armbar, if you can't quite figure that out or you can't quite get it, you might be able to lock up the hands for the paintbrush. So options are there. It's great to be in mount, and it's nice to be able to kind of force your way up their body a little bit to get their arms exposed and go to work from there.
Yep, and I can remember back training with a gi. One thing I always do, even when I put the gi on, and I put it on here not too long ago when I was training, and first thing is I have mount. I put my hand in the collar to threaten. Arm goes up a little bit, slide up into S mount and go for an arm bar. Like you said, it's a good combination there. And one thing I was guilty of is mount's always been one of my weaker attacks, and it's kind of strange. Everybody says mount is a position you want to be. You got mount or back mount as everybody's talking. I've always been a side control person, and I found myself having mount and getting out of mount and going to side control, and which is really a bad habit to have. I really need to work on mount. So that's one thing I've been working on is when I get mount, staying on mount unless I get reversed or swept or whatever happens, but not going to my bread and butter, going, dismounting and going to side mount. I want to stay on mount and, try to finish from there and get better from that position. So, if you are like me and you have a position that's better, but you want to get better at mount, resist going to a better position and work on a weaker position, which for me is the mount, and, try to use those submissions from there.
Gary, I think you're selling yourself short on your mounted guillotine. That thing is devastating. But
I don't consider that from the mount because I really take it from side control and then go to mount.
Okay.
It normally starts in side control and then comes to mount.
I see.
So,
but a lot of times when you go from mount to side, you're not just moving to side control, you're moving to an attack in side control.
Yeah, I'm moving to attack.
So,
I'm moving it so your body turns.
Yeah. So those are interesting options, and it's something that you've done and kind of evaluating your own game. You're looking at maybe making some changes to what you're doing, and that's kind of cool to hear right now. And I could maybe be warned a little bit in the future about what's going to happen when you get mount. But mount attacks, if you get there, work on staying there. I think that control is a big thing. Same thing with side control. You don't want to go for your attack and then lose the position right away. Control is a big factor here, and if you're having a hard time controlling your opponent and getting them to stay in these mount or side control for very long, that should be your main focus, is just to get them here. I'm going to learn how to make them stay here, and then after you can figure the control out, the submissions will come to you. So don't neglect that part of your game. You need to be able to keep somebody there for a little while before you're going to find that good attack.
That's a really great point, and we totally did not bring that up. That's it's something we should have brought up at the start. You definitely want to have control before you do any of this, because it is definitely disheartening. You fight and you pass that guard. You finally pass that guard. You got side control or mount. You're in a great position, and you have no control, and you go for a sloppy armbar, and you end up on the bottom. So definitely control before looking for your submission.
There we go. This cover with to do from the bottom. I have a standard that I teach all new students that ask me that if they're struggling about, amount of escapes, I teach them what I do currently as a black belt, and it works good for everyone from white to black, at least at my level of black belt. When I'm able to escape, I don't escape every mount that I'm in, so clearly I have some issues. But what I recommend is you want to roll the person. In the standard roll, you're going to control an arm, you're going to control a leg on the same side, usually with your leg somehow, and then you bridge upward. I'm controlling the right side. I got the right side locked up. I bridge upward, and I don't roll to the right side quite yet. I bridge upward, and then hopefully they'll plant the other hand on the mat directly above me, and then I roll over to the side. So it's kind of a two-step roll or two-step bridge or oompa, and that's hard to do, but it's great when it happens because you end up going from the bottom to a top position. But a lot of times, because I'm not controlling their leg with a appendage that has an opposable thumb, or I can't grab their leg with my leg. I'm just kind of laying it on top. I'm trying to hook it, do my best, but a lot of times that leg will end up coming out and end up, whether it's just the knee or the foot or whatever, like a kickstand on a bicycle. They're not going to roll over that side, and it's frustrating to tie up the arm, hold it really good, and then make your big roll, and that foot manages to come out, and they don't roll. But what happens when that foot comes out is there's a ton of space. Maybe not a ton, but a lot of times there's, especially at the lower levels, there's a ton of space between that foot and your hip. And you can just sneak your knee right up in there and get your guard back. And at higher levels, there's less space, but it's still there. You might have to incorporate a quick roll with more kind of a shrimp to the opposite direction and create more space that way. But the combination of these two is hard to stop. I always try to do the roll. I always want them to end up on the bottom. And if they could stop me from rolling, it's usually difficult to stop me from getting my guard back because I'm going to start shrimping. I'm going to use that space that they're stopping my roll with, because another detail of this couple of or two techniques is I don't let the hand go. That hand is, I must control the hand, because if they post with the hand, I gain nothing. I didn't get any space at the hips, and I'm not going to get my guard back. So death grip on the hand with both hands, and they know it's coming, but I go to do my roll. Their foot comes out to stop the roll. I'm going to take advantage of the space. If their foot doesn't come out, I've rolled them and got top. Those are my two escapes that I do. I kind of do them at the same time, and they've been working pretty good for me. I don't really know when I started doing this, but they're still working good now, and they work on people who are on their first week of training. With not really on them, I guess I should not have said that, but they work for them. It's something that it's not hard to pick up, and it's a good way to get out of mount.
Yeah, and the bridge escape is basically one of the very first ones I ever learned. And I learned it, and I drilled it, over and over again. And, it was working. I mean, I was missing a lot of stuff when I was first training, but, I put some time into it. And then as I started training, that move, that escape somehow fell out of my toolbox. I totally forgot about it. And, I'm doing all these other escapes. And here in the last year, I have really been trying to bring that back. And, they teach it to you early on for a reason, because it does work. And for some reason, I don't know why I forgot about it, or it's not cool enough or something, but, I have been bringing that back into my game. It's, such a basic submission, but like Byron says, it works really well. You really got to make sure, you got the hand planted. You really got to make sure you've got that leg, because nothing's more frustrating than, you go to bump and, they do post out with that leg and you don't get the sweep. And plus it's awesome because you end up on top. It's not like you're, in half guard or guard. You are on top. You're in their guard, but you're on top. So I mean, that's one thing I wish I didn't give up for many years. I would be 100 times better at it than I am right now. And that's one thing I'm working on, trying to get better at that basic move. And my other one I do is just, I bump and turn to the side, and then I shrimp. I'll either, go to half or, try to catch a leg and escape out the back door. And, that's my go-to escape. And it works. It's one of those moves that works really, really well for me, kind of like my escape from half guard or from bottom side control with an underhook. I mean, and I have really good luck on that move, and it's been a great escape for me, just turning aside and shrimping out. But like I said, I've kind of given that one up here lately, and I'm going to work more on the bridge escape and bridge and roll escape, I guess you could call it.
There you go. I think looking at both these side control and mount in the bad position, in the bottom position, what we're doing is we're not doing anything major until we're ready to do it. So I'm not freaking out in side control and twisting and turning until my hands are right. And then I can freak out and twist it. No, I don't say go in my head until I'm ready to go. I don't try to roll you. I don't try to make big movements when you have mount on me until I've locked you up. And then I could try to, put a little energy towards it. But I'm not wasting energy constantly trying to get out. No, I need to do some things first, and then I'm going to try. And I think that helps cut down on maybe the spaz factor or just the waste of energy factor in these escapes.
Yeah. Yep, I definitely make sure my hands are in the right place, and before I move, it's kind of funny. I remember once I was training, and every time I tried to escape or get ready to escape, and then I would, kind of spaz, as Byron was saying, I would always just get smashed again. And after we were done, I was talking with a guy I was rolling with, and he's like, "Hey, every time when you get ready to escape, explode, your breath pattern changes. Like you'll start breathing in really heavy or whatever." And he's like, "I know exactly when you're getting ready to explode." And I never thought about that. And so I've always tried to now keep myself calm the whole time instead of spazzing out where I was kind of just giving it away by the way I was, breathing, getting ready to, he could tell I was getting ready to exert myself.
Gary, where do you want to head to next? We've got a lot more to go, and we're already headed up on the hour mark in just a little while here. But, so clearly, we're not going to be able to cover every position. We mentioned that, but you get the idea.
I say we finish off with a back control. How we escape it and where we're going from there. So let's say you got my back, Byron. You got your hooks in. You've got a seatbelt grip, and right off the bat, I'm trying to turn to my side. My first escape, I'm trying to turn to a side. I'm first of all, I'm tucking my chin because I'm worried about the choke. I'm shrugging my shoulders because I'm worried about the choke. I'm playing I'm controlling the choking hand. I'm not as worried about the hand underneath my arm, on the underneath, not the non-choking hand. I'm really worried about the choking hand. I got a hold of that wrist. I'm trying to, just put some pressure on it just to keep Byron away from my neck. I'm trying to turn to the side of that choking arm. And now I got to break your hooks, which is a hard part. I'm coming to the side, and I'm not going to reach down with my hands to break my hooks, which then leads to you maybe capturing my hand or make it a little easier to choke. I use my feet to break your, to move. I'll take one foot and I'll try to push your foot to the ground, and as soon as I get your foot to the ground on that bottom side, then I slide my body over the top of that. I'm trying, to put all my weight on top of that so you can't get it, and then it turns into a scramble. I'm trying to turn real quick in to beat you and get out of there. But that's, the very first thing is when somebody takes control, I'm tucking my chin, I'm shrugging my shoulders, and I'm controlling that hand, and I'm trying to get to a side. And, I do have one side that's better than the other, so I'm trying to get to my good side, and then just shimmy my way out from there once I break the hooks. But
there you go. It does. There's a difference here as well with the gi on because turning the wrong way will lead to a very tight choke very quickly. So
yes.
Learn that one. It's kind of there's a preferred side without the gi, but it's a way bigger deal if you're wearing that gi around you got the collar by your neck, and they could grab that and you twist into it, and it just makes a really nice choke for them. You don't want to do that. No
wonder I'm terrible with the gi on.
Another thing I do like, so I think what Gary's kind of describing is the basic motion of getting your back to the mat. If they're on your back,
basically,
that's where they are. But if you can kind of get one shoulder to the mat and then sneak the other shoulder onto the mat, they're no longer behind you; they're next to you, and that's a kind of a big deal as far as back control. You want to be behind them. You want to have that control, and if they could put their back on the mat instead of you, you're largely out. And so I do that. I think that's pretty standard to do that escape. Another thing, if they lose that seatbelt control, whether you could get an arm, out of it, easier without the gi than with the gi. But if both hands are up on top of your shoulder or both are underneath, it's difficult to stop you from rotating just within the back control, and you end up on top in guard. It's a little harder with the gi on with the underhooks because they can grab your lapel, and that's a pretty good position of control, but it's not a very threatening spot to be as far as chokes go. You have to watch your arms a little bit. But I guess that's another option for you to try. And if you're throwing both these at them, they're going to have to defend both of those while they're trying to choke you and maintain their position. From the attack position on the back control, we have to mention the standard rear naked choke. That's
basic move.
That's probably what you're going to get most of the time. With the gi on, bow and arrows very common as well. Without the gi, you've got a couple different things. For myself, I like the arm bar, but I like arm bar from the top, and it seems like a thing that's pretty similar to that. So just little transition of where their head is, and throw my leg over their head and go for the arm attack there. But it doesn't really matter. It's nice to be able to threaten the rear naked choke, try to work the arms, and then lock up the one of their arms and swing out my leg over the armbar attack, versus just try to do the choke. And they'll commit fully to that defense. They'll lock up your hands. They won't let you pull your second arm out from your seatbelt grip and it's stuck under their armpit. It's hard to finish that choke with just one hand. It's possible, but it's difficult. But just by having another thing to threaten, it makes both attacks a lot stronger to me anyway.
Yeah, and they both work, like you said, together. You've kind of got a underhook with one arm, and you're threatening with a choke, and they're defending. But the way your arm is under that other arm, you're kind of really threatening with the arm too. So you're going back and forth. But you mentioned the bow and arrow choke, and I'm not a huge gi person, but man, I tell you, the bow and arrow choke is my move. And every time, as soon as I put the gi back on, if I get back control, I'm going for that bow and arrow choke. And it was kind of neat. I'm telling you, I hadn't rolled with a gi in probably a year and a half, and I put a gi on here a month ago or so. And boy, it was kind of weird because as soon as I got back control, here I am right back into the bow and arrow. And it's funny. It's like these moves. It's like they say riding a bike. These moves I haven't done in so long. It's not that I was thinking of bow and arrow. You've done it so many times, it just comes right to you. And it was fun. It was weird, just doing something different, and which I don't do. And it's like, boy, I do miss that move. But bow and arrow, I really do like. And you, like Byron said, you got the rear naked choke, and then if you threaten a rear naked choke, just going for the same thing, and I see that happen over and over again. And not really having another move, and sooner or later that guy's the space is gonna be there, and he's gonna turn around and be on top. So you do need other moves, like Byron said. I think that armbar, swinging over to the armbar is a really good move. And I know I said the same moves as Byron, but they're pretty basic moves, and they work very well.
Yeah, there's other options. I used to do a triangle from the back attack quite a bit, and I consider it. It's a good submission, but it's pretty mean as well. I think I kind of just have dropped that for that purpose. But I'd still, if it's an option, but it's not in the two or so moves that I have going on in my mind that I'm trying to actively attack and work on. Yeah. If they hand it to me, I'm going to take it. That's basically any of the stuff. Just because you're working on your armbar and your Kimura, it doesn't mean you can't do something else if it's presented to you. No, it's just not your focus today. And your focus can change from day to day, or probably better to kind of keep them in there for a month or so, and maybe as you change these out, a few months or as the seasons go by, some of them end up being way better for you than you had thought, and you end up picking some really good techniques up because you've got to work with them over the long term. I do. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Let me go back to that. And, you guys listening here, Byron's a black belt. He's a very good grappler, very good teacher, very good mind in this sport. And, take that to heart, where he was just saying, your focus, keep that focus for, let's say, a month. And like I'm telling you, I I listened to Byron when he told me that, and it really changed my game. And, I didn't realize it was going to change my game as much as it did. And moves like he was saying that I didn't think were going to be great moves turned into great moves. I got very good at them. And Byron will tell you now, I've been rolling a long time, actually 2 weeks more than Byron. So I've been rolling longer than Byron. But I don't have a ton of moves. Byron will tell you that. Like, I'm not a guy, you're not going to see me doing tornado guard, X guard, or I do X guard, but a lot of this stuff I do not do. I don't have a very broad range game. I like to say I like to have some less tools in my toolbox, but tools that I'm very good with. And I think it's because I focus. I like Byron says a month, and I go crazy and stuff. I literally spend 6 months to a year just working on one position, and I think it's really helped my game. And to be honest, Byron, I do owe that to you. You really, you probably don't realize. I don't think I've really said it much about that, but that's something that has really changed my game. And when you were just saying that to the listeners there, I was like, hey, that's something really listen to, because it really did change my jiu-jitsu.
And now you beat me up all the time, Gary. I say a month. I think a month is good.
A month is good. A month is really good.
If you're on the newer side, if you're, I don't know, a white belt, blue belt, because you still need to explore the different aspects of jiu-jitsu. You need to learn all these different submissions. There's so much to learn still. But after, purple belt on up, it's okay to be spending more than a month. I mean, you're really getting into these techniques and learning the little details of them that you can only learn by doing them to multiple opponents for multiple amount of times, and
that's the key.
And really getting the feel for these, because you're going to pick up stuff you couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, it's the little details. It's funny. Somebody shows you, a sequence of moves, a set of moves, and you start really working on those, and at first you finally start hitting the moves, and you're like, oh, this is great. And you keep doing it a couple more weeks, and, it keeps going and going and going. And then about 6 months later, let's say, you're still kind of on the top of your game. You may not be using it all the time, but you realize all these little things that you weren't shown that you picked up, just analyzing the position in your head, or you're working outside, let's say watching YouTube videos and, watching, some of your high level grapplers, and they're explaining stuff, and you start piecing all that together. And it's funny now, it's like I don't necessarily learn moves anymore. I learn a little detail that makes a big difference. A little detail of how to twist my wrist, or where to put my hand, or, how to squeeze my knees. And that's what's so cool about the sport. The sport is so awesome that it doesn't matter how long you've been training, and you learn something all the time. And you don't have to just learn somebody who's been training longer than you or knows more than you. I'm like picking a bunch of wrestlers' brains. Wrestling, they do stuff a little bit differently. And I just learned so much right now, just, little things from wrestlers that I bring into my game. And so I'm always open to learn from anybody. I don't care how long you've been training or what you know. I can learn something from everybody. And it's just such a cool sport, because you're always learning. It's always evolving.
Yeah. And let's say, you're in that purple belt stage, or you're looking to take a couple techniques to the next level, a month is not enough time really to understand a technique. It might end up doing a full year on something, or maybe making, you look at people, they make a career out of like a handful of techniques, and they are successful with that. And that might end up being what you are doing as well. And that's fine. That's great. But you have to find these techniques and which ones work good for you. So definitely earlier on, or if you haven't got to experiment much, it's okay to do even later on, but you need to purposely put some things away and put some things into your game and just see how they go. But we have every year, I think it's in December, so it's coming up, Kimura month. And last year, I told everybody, I have a terrible Kimura, and I do have a terrible Kimura. But for that entire month, I was trying to get Kimuras everywhere I could. So, I'm sure my Kimuras improved somewhat, but improving from terrible to mediocre is basically what I was able to accomplish. If I would have wanted to get a better Kimura, I would have stuck with it more and more. I picked up some things, and it wasn't maybe 4 months after that last year. I was training with Gary, and I do a tech. I grab people's chins. It's kind of a weird thing, but if If
It's a
if I
strong
use side
control
control
position.
and you turn away from me a little bit, I reach my hand under your head and I grab your chin and I pull it in towards my body. It's kind of an unusual thing, but it's a really good way to control somebody. And Gary's asked me about it, and I'm showing it, and he's giving his thoughts about it. He goes, "Dude, that's a great Kimura spot." I'm like, oh my. I've been trying everybody else's Kimura, but because I worked on this chin grab for 4 or 5 months, I could suddenly have a decent Kimura because my setup that I didn't intend to fit with that ends up being great with it. And so Gary, a Kimura guy, is able to see that because he's been working years on his Kimura, and he sees this right away. Dude, you're missing your Kimuras right there. Oh, okay. This is awesome. And it shows the value of your teammates, of your training partners, of learning something in detail. For me, it was a chin grab. For Gary, it was a Kimura. And then him sharing that with me to where I could have a decent Kimura if the situation shows up that I could get that chin grab. I guess that's just a little example of how, maybe it's time to make a change. When I learned that, okay, from the chin grab, I would try to go to the back. And now I'm going to try to do Kimura, try that for a while now. And that's how your game is going to work as you go further down the road. I want to cover a couple more positions, maybe not as much detail. For the guard, if you're playing your guard and you're on the bottom, there's a lot of things to consider. Which guard you're going to play and all this stuff. And so you can quickly get lost, 2 moves from each guard. Okay, that's still, I'm at 250,000 moves to narrow down to try to learn. So play a type of guard that you could play on your teammates. If everybody in your team stands up and passes, it's not going to be real practical to play a guard that doesn't do well against that. So if everybody passes on their knees, you're going to work on techniques that are going to work when people have a lower base and are on their knees. So kind of just look at your teammates and look at who you're training with and making consideration. I'm going to work on arm drag from the guard, and I'm going to work on triangle choke or whatever. I do recommend always having a sweep and having a submission and changing them out periodically. And it's okay to have 2 sweeps or maybe working 2 submissions, but you're not going to be if you're working on 2 submissions at the same, every 2 moves, you're basically got guard, and hopefully you'll stay there or they'll pass it. You get your sweep, and you can get on top. So I think it's kind of a nice thing to work on. But as you get more experience and you have different guards, you'll have 2 things that work from your spider guard, 2 things that work from your butterfly guard, 2 things that work from half guard. But really, at the earlier on phase, is I'm in my guard, I have my guard, and I'm going to work on these 2 things and try to get them to work. And that will as they block your sweep, maybe you end up getting a submission out of it. So you just give you some options there. It's really a place where you have to discover what's working good for you. And really, a lot of times what's working good for you is what your opponents and your training partners are doing as they respond to you.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like gyms become known for, like you said, different ways of passing the guard. And normally, is based off of their teacher, their instructor. And, you just get used to a certain style, and then maybe you go to an open mat and train with somebody else, and you're like, oh man, these guys do something totally different. And you're like, okay, what do I do from here? It's a totally different passing style. But, Byron's right. Like some sweeps or passes don't work against, different styles. So, you've got to, first of all, you're going to see what your teammates do and work from there. But then as you've been training a little bit longer, you'll evolve when you start training with other people and see different techniques. And, always keep an open mind. Always, I always say that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. We're supposed to listen twice as much as we talk. And if you just sit there and watch and listen to people, you'll learn a lot. People in this sport, are very, how do you say it, very giving. You have a great attitude and you're a good person, they're going to show you everything you need to know, even if they're from a rival school. It just seems like this is a sport where, everybody gives to each other. And so just watch, learn, and listen, and you'll pick up a lot of stuff.
I feel like I should be silent a third of, there's 2 ears and 1 mouth, and there's only 2 of us, so maybe a third of the time we should be quiet.
So between us, we got 4 ears and 2 mouths, so half the show should just be radio
We'll try
static.
to see how that goes. If the listeners probably would not be our best show ever, which we're trying to do every episode. Also, I want to cover stand up. So, guard passing is also up to you based on what your teammates are doing. You might be able to find it yourself it's nice as a guard passer if you could pass the same way for this all guards. If you could, Gary does spider guard, Gary does butterfly, whatever. If I could bring him into a similar passing situation where I'm going to do one of two passes, it's going to be advantageous versus trying to figure out how to pass the spider, how to pass the butterfly, how to pass the half. I want to pass the same guard every time. And so find ways, it's not bad to take a step back and disengage his spider guard and end up, in butterfly guard, or end up in half and pass what you're familiar with. So that's maybe a passing tip. But, it's way harder to defend two different guard passes than just, trying the same pass, same side every time, same pass, same side. Put a little bit of variety, but not, a ton. You want to have that focus, learning that you're going to develop. Stand up, Gary.
Oh, you want me to stand up?
Stand up and take a deep breath. No, for takedowns.
Oh, okay, that's what you mean.
Let's cover that briefly, and like all of us, it could go way deeper. But I like, especially for new people, I think it's hard to learn to shoot in and get a good double leg. You get sprawled on; it's difficult.
Yep, choked. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I like I recommend arm drag. It's relatively. You could get dragged back and they'll end up taking your back, but it's relatively risk-free as far as, having a miserable experience, getting flattened out or getting picked up and thrown or whatever. Do a little arm drag and then kind of trip them up and try to end up on top from there. That's a nice takedown. And if your arm drag fails, go ahead and pick up a single leg and work from there. The single leg, I think, is a lot less of a miserable position if it fails. You're not getting sprawled on quite so hard and not having to deal with him like that. So I think that's a good little combination if you're looking for two techniques for stand-up. If you have a good technique already for stand-up, it's just one. If you can find another one that kind of goes with it, both of them will be easier.
Yeah, I kind of it's funny that you're talking about arm drags because that's another move I learned early, and I kind of stopped doing it. And I've been drilling lately. I'm trying to get much better at my arm drags. It seems like my arm drags are better in guard than they are standing up. But like you said, it can lead to a nice single leg. And when you're working, single legs, and especially in jiu-jitsu, make sure your head's on the inside. Every time your head starts, pushing past that hip, you're in trouble of getting guillotined. So, always watch your head position. But I'm with Byron. I like to do a really low-level single and pick the ankle, basically. And what I like about that is I don't have to worry about my neck. I'm down there very low, and I don't have to worry about my neck. So I really do like that. That's been one of my favorite takedowns.
There we go. It's that, and it often, especially in jiu-jitsu, that these are a little overlooked because we don't always start from standing. And so put yourself there occasionally. If you have mat space big enough that you could stand and not land on your other training partners, do a little stand-up, and it helps with your takedowns and takedown defense.
Yeah, it's definitely a major part of the game, and I think that's one part. I don't think it's as bad as it used to be. I think a lot more people are trying to stand up, but I know back in the day when I first started training, boy, we didn't stand up at all, and I think that hurt my game a little bit off the bat. But now I'm really trying to work my wrestling and stand up a lot more.
Gary, I think we've covered quite a bit here. Of course, all these positions can be broken down into subcategories, where the more advanced person is going to try to do two moves from each one. I mean, really, if you're a half guard sweep person, you're working at probably a couple of your favorite half guard sweeps. But if you're not in half guard, you're working butterfly guard or spider, you're working those. So to say two moves from guard works great for the newer person or someone who hasn't developed a couple of good guards yet. But once you've developed a couple of them, or maybe same thing from side control or mount, there's high mount, middle mount, and low mount, and a few variations of those. Learn from all different spots in those, but really it's hard to do all of them at the same time. Kind of have a focus when you walk into class. I'm going to be working on this particular mount or this particular guard if I can, and these couple of moves from here, and it will accelerate your learning.
Yep, and like Byron said, there's so many different subsets of guards and different positions, high, medium, low mount, everything like that. And if you want to index to it all, Byron's audiobook 2 moves from every position and subset. He basically is going to have that come out. It's it's 2.5 days, not 2.5 hours like his other one. It's 2.5 days worth of content. So definitely check it out. It's called the Extra Long Audiobook. Every position available, 2 moves. And like I said, 2.5 hours of content. So definitely check it out.
2.5 days of content.
Or 2.5
You're
days
usually
of
in
content.
half because 2.5 hours because the audiobook that I've actually published.
Yeah. The bad thing is when Byron was finished recording this 2.5 days, and it was broken down into 2.5 days after everything was cut out of the cutting room. It really was about 5 or 6 days. Byron had laryngitis for 7 days. So, he put in a lot of work. So you definitely need to check it out.
Gary, I like how you're trying to throw an audiobook at me. Because we've largely wrapped up our topic of the episode, and typically what we do is we'll have a kind of a fun segment, and a lot of times that's Gary's fake audiobook that he makes up on the spot based on the title I throw at him. Occasionally, Gary,
we have a Mad Tale. What do we got this week?
We got a Mad Tales, Gary.
Yes, thank you.
So this one, I had to do a little research because it referenced somebody who I did not know. I feel like a nerd, but there's evidently a guy named K-Fed. People are probably laughing at me. His real name is Kevin Federline, and they said that somebody comes into the gym looks like him. I was like, okay, who is this? So I went and looked, and I don't know. It might help with the visual imagery if you know who K-Fed is. Otherwise, the images I saw on Google were kind of like gold chain, kind of big hat, and kind of look like he's trying a little bit too hard to be cool is kind of how I'd sum it up. But I feel better because Gary doesn't know who K-Fed is. So,
so you're basically saying he kind of looks like you.
He kind of looks like, yeah. Well, I could wear multiple gold chains, all the time.
You just wear one.
Yeah. I mean, he'll get there someday, Gary.
Yeah.
So here's our Matt Tales. I hope you enjoy it.
This is Matt Tales. We bring you amazing jiu-jitsu stories. The stories might be funny, unfortunate. It could be about an epic fail or an epic win. So sit back, my friend, relax, dry off your sweat from rolling, and enjoy Matt Tales.
One of the fun things of jiu-jitsu is you never know who's going to walk in the door next. Well, I was a little surprised to see this K-Fed lookalike come in to train with us. He was decked out in every piece of tap-out clothing you could imagine. I didn't know tap-out made socks, but he was wearing them. He promptly informed us that he does MMA, and his record was 38-6. We asked him to name a few of the organizations he had fought for. He struggled a little bit, and my friend asked him if he ever fought for CNN up in New York. He assured us that he did, and my friend politely explained to him that it was actually a news organization and not a martial arts promotion. Well, during the course of the class, it became apparent that he had no idea what he was doing. And when it was time to roll, we paired him up with our 15-year-old blue belt. The kid was tapping him left and right. It was kind of a proud moment to watch him dismantle this adult. It came my time to roll with him. He was a bit frustrated by how his evening was going. And I had tapped him a few times, and he refused to shake hands in between taps. He was clearly getting upset. Well, when I got mount on him, his frustration kind of boiled over. He struggled and twisted and tried to escape, but he could not dislodge me from the mount. This is when he declared, "MMA rules," and hit me in the face. Instantly, I was angry. I considered hitting him back. My judgment got the better of me, and I calmed down, maintained the mount position, controlled him, controlled his arms, and held him. Because I hold in my mount what might be the dumbest grappler to ever walk into this gym. And why would I want to injure him any more than he's already done to himself? I quietly ask him, why would you want to start MMA rules while I have the mount? He just fought for freedom until the time ran out, and I released him from my grip. He was quite irate and making a big scene about the rules he had experienced. Demanding that if this was MMA, it would be going much better for him. Well, fortunately, my friend Chuck grabbed his MMA gloves and was more than happy to put them on. Well, this new stranger to the gym declared that maybe next time, because he's going to take the rest of this evening off. He'll be back soon to train MMA and show us that he is indeed a cage fighter. No surprise, he never did show up to class again. The whole experience was kind of different. Never had anybody hit me while I had mount on them. And our 15-year-old student looked so good. Rolling with him, we were all very happy with his progress. That night, we served up some humble pie to this K-Fed lookalike. I just hope he learned one thing tonight. If he ever decides to go back to a jiu-jitsu gym and train, he just does his best and doesn't worry about trying to impress anybody. A couple months later, I ended up bumping into him at the grocery store. I asked him if he had any fights coming up, and he said no, which I think was the first truthful thing he said to me.
This has been Matt Tales. Some of the names and places may have changed. We may in fact have taken some creative liberties with the story. In order to keep Matt Tales going, we need more tales. Tales from listeners like you. Send your tales to bjjbrick@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing your amazing stories.
Thanks again for the submission of a Matt Tales. This was Matt Tales episode 10, MMA K-Fed.
Yeah, a very entertaining episode. And I just want to know where I can get some tap-out socks.
Gary, I'm sure you can get them online, or you can just borrow a pair from me if you need them.
Thanks, K-Fed.
Yeah, no problem, Gary. But Matt Tales is supported by listeners who have crazy stories to share. If you've got a crazy story to share and would like everybody else to kind of hear an audio drama of it like this, send it to bjjbrick@gmail.com, and we'll do our best. We have gotten a few that were either a bit too wild or possibly just had no truth to them. It seemed a bit too out there, and we haven't used them. But generally speaking, they've been great, and not that those that are too wild or a bit too graphic, maybe. I don't know what to say. Those are also interesting too. We just we're looking for more of a funny or fun story versus something that might be explicit in the nature of the story. I mean, they could have. We've had some crazy stories and crazy parts to them, but anyway. But send your stories to us, and hopefully we'll be able to make them into a story just like this one. And without you guys, this segment doesn't really go anywhere.
So definitely keep submitting some Matt Tales to us. Hey, don't forget to check us out on social media. We're on YouTube. Facebook is our main one. We're on Instagram, Reddit, Twitter. So definitely check out BJJ Brick on a bunch of different social media avenues.
Yep, it's easy, and we like to interact with you guys wherever you guys want to be. So if you want to be in Wichita, Kansas, that's where we're located, right in the middle of the United States, hit us up. Any of the social media outlets will do just fine, and we'll try to train with you. We can't make it to train with everybody who happens to come through town, but between Gary and I, usually one of us at least could get on the mat with you and get to meet you guys. So that's always fun to do. Gary, I've got some great news, man.
Great news. What would that be?
We've got a new friend.
Yes.
I'm going to mispronounce his name, and I apologize in advance to Mislav. He is from Croatia. He is supporting the show on Patreon, and it means so much to us that somebody is willing to support us on a per-episode basis, and really just helping us out produce these episodes. And here we are, Gary and I spending our afternoon recording this episode, and Matt Tells takes a chunk of time as well. So this, it's taking time, and like the article, of the week, we're busy people as well, and so it makes it a little bit easier to do this with having support, and also there are costs associated with the podcast, and helps cover those. So thank you to our friend. I hope I'm not saying your name too poorly, but Mislav, he's in Croatia. I got the email saying we got a new Patreon supporter. I was like, yay! I was so happy and excited. And
especially from Croatia, too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. He's going to be getting a big BJJ Brick gi patch. It's 5 inches. You probably have it by the time this is airing, I would hope. But it means a lot to us. There's multiple options of how much you could support us for, and different rewards at different levels. Check it out. Some as little as 50 cents. So appreciate any support. If you're wanting to help keep the show going, check us out on Patreon. There'll be a link to it in the show notes or on the website. And it means a lot to us, man. It really does.
Yep. Hey, something else that means a lot to us is tell your buddies about us. Tell all your friends. Let them know about the podcast. Share it to them. If you're on the email list, forward your email on to a couple of your friends. The best form of flattery we get, besides supporting us on Patreon, is word of mouth. We love it when somebody tells us, hey, my buddy Joe told me about this show, and listening. So thank you. So, yes, please tell your friends about us, and hopefully we can get more listeners and make the show even better there for y'all.
Yep, that's the plan, and we do appreciate the growth we've had over the past year. Next week, Gary, I'm excited about next week's show, my man.
Byron keeps a lot of stuff to me, so I really don't know what's going on. I just show up. I'm like that guy who just shows up but doesn't put any extra time into it. Byron's the hard worker. I'm the slacker. But what do we got going on next week, Byron?
No, Gary's the guy who just shows up and then kicks butt and makes it look easy. But next week, this is kind of mentioned that this takes time and stuff. This is actually going to be 4 interviews in one episode, and I was really happy this episode could even happen. What I did was I was inspired by Hope Uzgadagi, who won White Belt Worlds, and I was like, what does she do to get good at jiu-jitsu fast? Clearly, it's not you're not looking at like who's the best in the world. Well, who's the best in the world that's new at jiu-jitsu, and that's what we're looking at White Belt Worlds. So I emailed out and Facebook messaged a lot of the people who are on the list of who won White Belt Worlds. I got 4 of them to agree to interviews, and I got to come up next week. So we have Janine. She won a middleweight. Maui, he won light featherweight. George, he's ultra heavyweight, and Gabby, a rooster weight. So we're fortunate. We got different weight classes. We got 2 ladies and 2 guys, and it kind of get a variety of looks at what these people are doing to do so well early on in jiu-jitsu, and
which is a hard time.
Yeah, if you're a black belt, it might be interesting to you. It might be good advice that you could pick up for your students. That are really wanting to compete early on. What are these people doing? It's almost like a study of what these people have done, and I ask them basically the same questions. I get different answers, but there's trends overall, and I think that I'm just excited about this next week's episode, and I think it'll be one that we probably do again next year. I don't know.
It's a great idea.
It may not be possible to do every year because I was lucky these 4 people responded to me, but there we go.
perspective. And, really that's what our show's geared toward. Our show is not geared towards, the high-level black belts. When Byron came to me and, asked me if I wanted to be in a podcast with him, and what we really geared it towards is white belts and blue belts. And, our goal is to grow jiu-jitsu, to get more people trained in jiu-jitsu. And we just saw that a lot of people are quitting early. It's a very tough sport. We kind of talked about that earlier on the quote of the week, the no pain, no gain. And that's really what we're trying to do is we think if you can keep up the sport, your first couple of years, the early times of your sport, you're going to keep into the sport. You're going to keep training and, grow this in the United States, worldwide. And just more and more people are going to become jiu-jitsu athletes, and we can't wait.
There we go. So we're pumped about next week's episode, as you should be. And if you're listening to this in the distant future, it's probably already out, and you can go ahead and skip forward to that. So, but we'll catch you guys next week. As always, stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
All right, here's a little extra, my friends. Gary mentioned during the quote of the week that he should be a rapper after he made a couple of rhymes in a row. So here we go. DJ Gary.
I know we were talking about pain and gain. It's always a pain when you have to work or you have stuff in your life happening where you can't get on the mat and train, so you can make about pain and gain. It's always a pain when you have to work or you have stuff in your life happening where you can't get on the mat and train, so you can make gains. I should be a rapper after all.